Good morning. Members of the class of 22, parents, family members, friends, faculty, and staff, you're mostly seated. If you're not seated, please be seated. I welcome you to this baccalaureate service and to the entire series of events that will culminate tomorrow morning with our commencement ceremony. After tomorrow, you, our seniors, will be graduates of Washington and Lee University. It's a distinction you'll carry with you for the rest of your lives. Lives that I am sure, that's right, we'll celebrate in advance. Your lives, I am confident, will be ones of consequence, full of accomplishments that bring further distinction to you and to your alma mater. These are a happy few days, though they are also strange. They're full of powerful and mixed emotions. They intersperse moments of high formality, like this ceremony this morning, with precious moments of informality with your family and your friends. There's inevitably sadness in your taking leave of one another, and you would not be human if you did not feel at least some anxiety as you face a future that is full of promise, yet inherently uncertain. But let this period also be overflowing with joy and the gratification that comes with knowing you have done well, that you've grown as individuals and you've become forever a member of a very special and extended community. There's an established rhythm to this series of events at Washington and Lee. Tomorrow is a time of great celebration. Today is one of reflection and of giving thanks. Each of you knows you would not be here today without the support of family and friends, without the guidance and encouragement of your faculty, without the support of the staff, without the generations of alumni who have come before you and given their gifts so you might benefit from the same experience that has profoundly shaped their lives. And so we gather for this baccalaureate service. It arises from the religious traditions of the university, which was founded by disciplined, thrifty, and strong-willed Scotch-Irish Presbyterians. They came to this valley in search of freedom from religious constraint and with a desire to fashion a community of hardworking individuals. From that disposition, they created a place of learning that has always been non-sectarian and non-denominational. The origins of this day go back to the 18th century, and as it was then, it remains a time for us to reflect on how an education shapes the life of a caring individual. From your time here has taught you to share the fruits of your education, to take your life in the direction of service, no matter your career, and to be mindful of ideals that transcend yourself. To help us with that theme, I now call upon the members of the University Singers, under the direction of Shane Lynch, who will sing The Road Home.
Tell me where is the road?
Thank you, University singers. I now have the honor of introducing our baccalaureate speaker, the very Reverend Dane Boston. Dane is Dean of Trinity Episcopal Cathedral in Columbia, South Carolina. A native of Dunedin, Florida, he earned his W&L bachelor's degree in 2008, majoring in English with a special focus on the poetry and sermons of John Donne. He also completed the Shepherd program for the interdisciplinary study of poverty and human capability. Dane trained for the priesthood at Berkeley Divinity School at Yale, receiving his Master of Divinity in 2011. Ordained in 2012, Dane previously served as a curate of Christ Church in Greenwich, Connecticut, as canon for Christian formation at Trinity Cathedral in Columbia, South Carolina, and as rector of Christ Church in Cooperstown, New York. For 2 of his 3 years at Yale's Berkeley Divinity School, Dane served as a seminarian intern at St. Paul's Church in Wallingford, Connecticut. His studies at Yale included a strong focus on homiletics. Dane also participated in the newly launched Educational Leadership and Ministry program, exploring strategies for ministering to young people in both educational and parochial settings. At graduation, Dane was awarded the E. William Mule Prize for Preaching, given annually by the faculty of Berkeley Divinity School to the most eloquent preacher in the graduating class. As an undergraduate at W&L, Dane was actively engaged in volunteer and community building efforts in and around Lexington. He was involved with the campus kitchen at Washington and Lee and was a Bonner Scholar with more than 700 community service hours over a 2-year period. He taught Sunday school, sang in the choir, and served on the Rector Search Committee at Grace Episcopal Church. On campus, Dane worked in campus ministry through the Canterbury Club and was president of the University Chamber Singers. A W&L faculty member said, "There's something intrinsic about Dane that tends to draw out the best in people around him." Dane graduated summa cum laude, was selected as a member of both Phi Beta Kappa and Omicron Delta Kappa, was awarded the Edward Lee Pinney Prize, the Maxwell P. Wilkinson Scholarship, the Dabney Stewart Prize, and the Algernon Sidney Sullivan Award. Dane also served as the head dorm counselor for the Alumni College the summer before he entered Yale Divinity School. Dane and his wife, Debbie Newell Boston, also a member of the W&L class of 2008, have 4 children. Please join me in welcoming Dane Boston back to his alma mater.
Thank you, President Dudley, for the invitation to speak today. I am truly honored and humbled to stand in this spot, to behold this assembly, and to address the graduates of the class of 2022, their faculty, their families, and their friends. As I begin my remarks today, I would ask that we all take a moment of silence in the midst of our celebration to remember and pray for the victims and the families of those who were shot yesterday in Uvalde, Texas. Coming so fast on the heels of the shooting in Buffalo, New York, even as we rejoice together, we must grieve as a nation. Omnia autem probate. Test everything. You may be forgiven for completing 4 years at Washington and Lee without giving much regard to the Latin text on the little book in the upper left-hand quadrant of the university coat of arms. Doubtless many students have missed or ignored that small detail in that one element of the rich symbolic vocabulary of our tradition-laden school. But I have resolved not to allow the class of 2022 to leave Lexington without giving heed to those 3 words. So that text will be my focus for the next 2 hours of this address. That's a joke, of course, and a silly one. As a priest of the Episcopal Church, I learned a long time ago, congregations won't really mind anything I say if I say it in 12 minutes or less. Bear with me if I exceed that by just a little bit today, but on my honor, it won't be by much. I should tell you right now, we're going to look at just a few more words than the 3 on our university crest. Omnia autem probate is the beginning of a sentence found in the 5th chapter of the first epistle of St. Paul to the Thessalonians. And to understand those 3 words, we must see them in context. 1 Thessalonians is generally regarded by scholars as the earliest of the writings that make up what Christians call the New Testament of the Bible. So these words of exhortation come down to us from the middle of the 1st century of the Christian era, nearly 2,000 years ago. They were written by a great persecutor of the church who, after a profound conversion experience, became the greatest proponent of the church in his, or perhaps any, era. Saul of Tarsus gave his life to the arduous task of traveling the Roman world, proclaiming the death by crucifixion and subsequent resurrection of an itinerant Jewish preacher named Jesus of Nazareth. This Jesus, Saul, better known by his Roman name Paul, believed to be the anointed savior of his own Jewish people, and indeed of the whole world. Because his extensive travels took him far from the communities he established along the rim of the Mediterranean Sea, Paul wrote letters, commonly called epistles, to maintain his relationships, to answer questions, to correct errors in faith and practice, and, of course, to solicit funds. On that final point, I will state right now that, President Dudley, there is no collection taken at today's service. Parents, you may relax your white-knuckled grip on your wallets that you've maintained for the last 4 years. That was a long digression. Let me return to my point. The text on our university crest is the first half of a complete verse, 1 Thessalonians 5:21. The full sentence in the Latin Vulgate translation, St. Paul wrote in Greek, is omnia autem probate, quod bonum est tenesse. The classics department can correct my pronunciation at lunch, but I think they will agree with my English rendering. Test everything. Hold fast to what is good. Now, our crest only includes the first 3 words, but there is sound biblical and heraldic precedent for efficiently quoting an entire verse by citing only its incipit. Surely that is what Professor William George Brown intended in 1901 when he designed the W&L coat of arms, combining the insignia of the Washington and Lee families with these words from Holy Scripture. So if we are to understand them aright, we must first understand them in full. Indeed, if we fixate only on the words actually quoted on our crest, we will profoundly misapprehend their meaning. The exhortation to test everything is, on its own, an invitation to lead rather a cynical and suspicious life. If we are satisfied simply and only with testing everything, we are liable to adopt a dour and distrustful disposition, ready to scrutinize, moralize, and agonize over every last detail of our own and other people's behavior. Put simply, we'll be super judgy. Let me tell you, I have been that guy. I was that guy for much of my time at W&L, I'm sorry to say, and he's no fun at parties. We need both halves of our verse if we are to benefit from it. Test everything, hold fast to what is good. This is a call to discernment and to enjoyment, to rigor and to richness, to truth and to trust. It is also a call that makes some significant assumptions about our world and ourselves, assumptions that are neither automatic nor easy. and which challenge other widely held assumptions that undergird or perhaps more accurately captivate our society in these early decades of the 21st century. Those assumptions and that difficult, deeply meaningful call are what I wish to explore with you today. First, the expectation that we will test everything assumes that we have the capacity for critical thought. If we are to test everything, we must be able to take in complicated information, make distinctions, draw conclusions. That capacity itself is in desperately short supply in the United States of America and in the wider world in 2022. I trust and hope and pray that it is rather more abundant in the W&L class of 2022. That is one of the great advantages and blessings of spending 4 years at a place like Washington and Lee. Whatever your individual field of study or whatever you intend to do after graduation, you now know how to think. That you are able even to consider testing everything is a gift conferred on you by your Maker, but nurtured and brought to maturity in you by the extraordinary faculty of this institution. For that gift, and for their faithfulness in inculcating that gift in each of you, you might reasonably contemplate standing up now and lying prostrate before them in gratitude. I don't say you should, only that you might consider it. You also have the advantage, but I do not think I can say the blessing, of having lived the entirety of your lives in the digital age. I trust, therefore, that you are already more adept than preceding generations at sifting the wheat from the chaff in the online sphere, where we now live so much of our so-called lives. But I wonder whether, having been saturated in advanced information technology practically from birth, you have considered testing its very premise. That constant connection, constant information, constant entertainment are desirable or salutary for creatures such as we are. Are we actually better off with screens before our eyes at all times and in all places? Perhaps. Should we simply accept that every technological advance and its concomitant cultural shift conduces to human flourishing? Of course not. Test everything. Hold fast to what is good. Now, the second assumption intrinsic to Paul's words is that there exists in our world and in ourselves actual good and evil, and that we can and should cleave to the former and discard the latter. Even this assertion is not without controversy at the present time. Our participation as citizens in a pluralistic democratic republic requires of us the deep humility to acknowledge and respect varied and sometimes competing claims about what actually is good, at least insofar as they are sincerely held by other members of our society and they do not bring harm to others. But too many people make a logic-defying leap from the true statement, my understanding of the good may differ from that of my neighbor, and she and I ought both to be free to pursue our understanding to the fullest without infringing on one another, to the damnable falsehood, there is no such thing as good or evil, only different points of view. The first assertion upholds the highest, if still unrealized, ideals of our founding. The second opens the door to reckless relativism, and beyond it, the unspeakable horrors that are checked only by the terrifying limits of the corrupted human imagination. Test everything. Hold fast to what is good. The capacity for discernment and the conviction that discernment is worth deploying for our own sake and the sake of our world. These ought to be the animating forces driving the great debates of our society. How acutely we feel the need for that capacity and that conviction as our national life descends into mindless tribalism and easy sloganeering. How acutely we feel the need for that capacity and that conviction as both ends of the political spectrum retreat into impregnable redoubts of identity-based grievance and shrill self-righteousness, denying even the possibility of compromise and silencing any who dare challenge their own narrow, shifting orthodoxies. How acutely we feel the need for that capacity and that conviction each time some twisted soul, enamored of his own warped and wicked vision of the good and enthralled to conspiracy theories and nonsense and a whole hermeneutic of hate, takes up weapons of war against our fellow citizens, even against innocent children, as they go about their ordinary lives. Our world, our nation, our communities, our families, our very souls need critical thinkers capable of discerning the difference between good and evil and willing to stand as a bulwark against encroaching chaos. Test everything. Hold fast to what is good. What about the great debates we conduct in and for and about our beloved university? Recent conversations on campus and in the alumni community powerfully, painfully illustrate the importance of discerning the good and cleaving to it. We can no longer afford to indulge in the illusion that the legacy handed on to us is uncomplicated and always admirable. We must grapple at W&L with the difficult inheritance of slavery and secession, of white supremacy and white privilege, of the very names of the great, flawed men for whom this school is christened. How do we marry our undeniable debt to the blessings that George Washington and Robert E. Lee bestowed upon this community of learning with the simultaneous acknowledgement of the undisputable evil of their own slaveholding and their shared place in the foul and foundational history of racism in our country? Test everything. Hold fast what is good. But at this point, the exhausted graduates and the exasperated parents and the thoroughly bored faculty equally rise to shout the same simple question: how do you tell the difference? By what metric will you test everything, determine what is good, and throw away the rest? Well, consider what you have learned in this place. I'm not thinking simply of what you glean sitting in neat rows of desks in those buildings up there. I'm thinking of what you have received through 4 years of dwelling in the very culture of our dearly loved, always imperfect, ever improving school. Consider the deep truth at the heart of the speaking tradition. In the countless hellos of friends and acquaintances and strangers and even a few enemies, we hear declared one simple good: you are not alone. You are not mere individuals, sailing solitarily through a universe built solely around your needs and whims, your appetites and desires. Rather, you are part of a community, a commonwealth, composed of an ever-shifting yet unbreakable web of relationships and interdependency with your fellow human beings and indeed with all of creation. Though even this lovely campus has more and more slipped into the solipsistic self-regard of the smartphone age. I've seen a few out there in the crowd, even this morning. There's one in the front row. That's okay, she doesn't mind. That's all right. I am a speaking tradition absolutist, I must say, much to my patient, quiet wife's annoyance. I say hello to everybody. The deep truth taught and lived in this place has not and cannot be shaken. You are not alone. Other people exist. That you see them, and see them as fully human, matters. How you treat them matters. And this is good. Test everything. Hold fast to what is good. Or what about the honor system? The fussy, old-fashioned expectation that people will not simply seek to win at any cost, but instead will conduct themselves according to principles of fair play and truth-telling and plain decency, all redounds to declare one simple good. Life has meaning. I know I'm beginning to sound like a daily affirmation app, but far too many people live as enemies of this basic truth. By their fruits ye shall know them. The rapacious investor who adds self-enriching costs but no common value to the marketplace. The scurrilous journalist who achieves self-advancement through innuendo and half-truth and an unearned and unsustainable sense of moral superiority. Even, and I hesitate to say it before this esteemed faculty, the puffed-up academic who has departed from the wholesome pursuit of knowledge to wander in the trackless wastes of notoriety and punditry. Each day, millions of people, both lofty and lowly, rise from their beds to lives devoid of any meaning beyond getting and spending. How subtle that snare. How easy to fall into that evil. Resist it. Challenge it. You are women and men of honor. That thoroughly outdated, ever new notion which attributes meaning and significance to each word and deed, founded in the sure and certain hope that life itself has meaning. And this is good. Test everything. Hold fast to what is good. Or consider at last the very fact that you have given 4 years of your life, some would say the best 4 years of your life. They're wrong, by the way, but I understand why they say it. You've given 4 years of your life to this place. To attend a school like Washington and Lee, to offer yourself to it and to receive from it what it has offered to you means that you have already tacitly accepted a great and staggering truth about yourselves. You have a purpose. May you carry from this place the firm conviction that there is more to your existence than mere being, but that you have been endowed with a deep and meaningful reason for being. Perhaps already you perceive it. Perhaps you have spent 4 years preparing for it, building on all the intuition and preparation you brought into your W&L career. Pre-meds are usually in this category from my own personal experience. That's good. Go forth and follow your course doggedly. But perhaps you doubt that it's possible that someone such as you could or would ever find a purpose. Good. Own that fact. Wrestle with that question. Go forth and fling out the banner of your deep uncertainty like a defiant gauntlet before the face of the cosmos. Dare God and the people you love and the people you rather less than love to prove and try your purpose, to forge your life in the furnace of adversity and to see whether at last, at a time and by a path to you now inconceivable, you do not find meaning. In other words, prove me wrong if you can. For you shall not shake in me the conviction that each and every one of you has a purpose, and that this place has prepared you to find it and to fulfill it. Test everything. Hold fast what is good. Thank you for the privilege of being with you this day. In closing, I ask humbly that you would apply to this little talk the same text I am imploring you to apply to your lives in the long years ahead. Think on what I have said. Test everything. If there is any good in it, hold fast to what is good. Throw away the rest.
Thank you, Dane, for your thoughtful and thought-provoking remarks. We will now, once again, hear from the University singers who will perform Shenandoah. Thank you to the University Singers and their director, Shane Lynch, for their contributions to our ceremony this morning. Their work is not yet quite done. In just a moment, they'll lead us in the W&L hymn. Before they do, let me wish all of our graduating seniors an enjoyable 24 hours, your last together as students at Washington and Lee. Let these hours be among the most meaningful of your time together. And now, would all please rise as we hear the W&L hymn.
In the shadows of white columns, we stop to hear the chimes, worn steps on which we linger, slowly yield to time. But when we doubt our future's course, our honor sets us free. A timeless trust in our alma mater, Washington and Lee. As the bells ring out the hours and echo through the halls, we sense in this brief moment the strength within these walls. But when we doubt our future's course, our honor sets us free. A timeless trust in our alma mater, Washington and Lee.
I'd like to invite everyone to join us for lunch on Cannon Green, and afterward, if you would like, for the reception at Lee House. We will reconvene tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock for commencement exercises. For today, we are adjourned. Thank you.